Yeah. Okay, no recording is on, and Treat, it's over to you.
Thank you, Ali. Let me share the screen. Can you see my screen now? Yeah, I assume that you can see it. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for making your time to attend this GitHub briefing here today. And before I start, I would like to say thanks to Ali, Carl, and CRC for inviting me to give this briefing. And actually, while preparing this presentation is a bit challenging for me because I believe that many of us attending the meeting today have been at least using some bit of GitHub in your research as well as software development. But hopefully from today's briefing, I can give you some other aspects and some other features provided by GitHub for project management, because sometimes we just mainly use GitHub for other features, but not focusing on the project management aspect. And hopefully we can also leverage these features for managing the Socrates project. So the briefing will expectedly take around 35 minutes, and then we can have time for Q&A and discussion at the end. But please feel free to let me know whenever you have questions during the presentation. Okay, so let's start. So before we start, just want to briefly introduce myself. So I'm Dr. Treat Lee, and I'm myself also a contributor to the Socrates project from the University of Adelaide, particularly in Work Package 2 and Work Package 3. And I'm also actively using GitHub for not only my research, but for various types of project supervision and teaching at the University of Adelaide. So I can say that I have used GitHub quite frequently for managing software projects. So today I would like to share some of my experience with you. So before moving on, I want to make a few notes. So regarding the scope of this presentation, I try to design it to be as user-friendly as possible for project management, meaning that we don't really need to rely on any, kind of source code or command line to get things done. The downside of this would be that the briefing may not be the best for people who look for like advanced features for software development, such as managing branches or dealing with pull requests. But I guess that's not the key focus of the presentation anyway. And the second point is that, as you already know, there are so many other tools out there that were designed specifically for project management. And from my experience using GitHub, it may not be as feature rich as those specialized tools, but at least it's free, And with its current features, I think it can still get most of the jobs done for the common use cases. And of course, what I'm going to share with you today is just one way of using GitHub for project management, but hopefully you can leverage some of the presented features to manage the project in your own way. And in case you have other ways of using GitHub to manage projects, please also feel free to share. I would be happy to learn from it as well. Okay, so first off, let's talk a little bit about GitHub and why we consider it in the first place. So GitHub is a cloud-based hosting service for managing code repositories that are based on Git version control system. And by managing repositories, I mean that they can enable collaborators to store, track artifacts in a collaborative ways for projects. So you may be wondering what I just said sounds a bit familiar, like cloud-based storage like Google Drive can also perform pretty much the same things, right? So what's so special about GitHub there? So here I would say that GitHub has some built-in support for tracking the fine-grained changes, particularly on the line level for text and code documents. And it also provides special mechanisms for people to explain the changes they make and also involve in the discussion and the review of such changes in a collaborative way, which may not be provided by like Google Drive or Dropbox at the moment. And of course, GitHub also has provided and keeps refining its capability for project management, which is the key focus of the presentation today that I'm going to share with you. So specifically in today's talk, I would like to cover the following 4 key features of GitHub that we can utilize for project management. The first is the README file. Then I will talk about the wiki pages. After that, I'll show you how we can upload, share, and manage the files on GitHub. And last but not least, I'll introduce some of the key tools offered by GitHub to help us create and track the tasks and progress of a project. So today I'll be using an example from the Work Package 2, which is about gold standard data for trustworthy assessment models in Socrates project as well, to demonstrate each of the 4 features here. Specifically, I will show you what each feature can do and how we can actually use it in real-world scenarios through the example of Work Package 2. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So first, let's talk about the README file. So this file, if you visit a repository on GitHub, that will be the first thing that you can see right on the front page. So just like what you expect from the front page of the website, usually we would include like the key details of the project. For example, the project name alongside with the background, the key objectives, and key deliverables. Essentially, we can leverage the README file to show upfront what the work package is about and up to. And this is just essentially a text file, but with some formatting capabilities using Markdown syntaxes. So here I have included a few commonly used syntaxes, Markdown syntaxes, such as, like, for example, creating headings or making the text italic, bold, as well as embedding a link. Because as you know, this is just a text file, so it cannot include another type of file inside it. So the only way is to embed a link to other types of artifacts. And in case you need more than what is presented here, then I will suggest you to have a look at this link here to find out more about the Markdown syntaxes in case you need more than this. And also would like to mention that GitHub allows us to preview the README file. So when we're editing it, so it means that we can instantly see how the changed version of the file look like. For example, on the left-hand side, we have like the raw Markdown content, which we're gonna work on. And for example, here, the first slide, you can see there's a sharp icon before the word WP2. And according to the previous slide, it means that this slide will be the heading 1, like the main heading. So when you click the preview tab, it will show you exactly like, yes, this one will be displayed like this. So essentially, what we see in the preview will represent what we're gonna see after we save the changes. So it helps us to make sure that the things we're making changes to are exactly what we want to see at the end in real time as well. And after making the edit, we can save the file by clicking the commit changes button. After that, GitHub will ask for details about the changes we made and why we made such changes. So here it sounds a little bit time consuming to fill out all these details. I understand that, but I still recommend that you should still do it. The reason is that later on, when you want to look back at the project history, you can still recognize what you did instead of just, a list of changes, but without any brief description. So you can understand why you did it before as well. And regarding the creation of a commit, the common practice is to briefly describe what we did in the commit message here. And the message should be short and clear, and usually, preferably, should be within 50 characters, starting with a verb and then followed by an action. For example, here, since I'm editing the README file, so the commit message can be update the README file. And then in the box below the commit message, we have the extended description box. So in this box, you can add more and longer details on why we're making such changes. Of course, like here, I'm just creating the README file for the first time. So there's really not much reasons to give. But for example, later on, if you add more content, then you can explain, for example, like you may want to make some changes to the key deliverables or make some changes to the due dates, for example, or the list of collaborators. So if you can capture those details, it would be easier for you later on when you review the changes you made. And after you're done filling in these two boxes, you can click the commit changes button at the bottom, and then GitHub will make a new commit with a unique ID to the main branch. And by main branch, I mean just the current repository that we're working on. And since he is not about software development, so I don't think we will have many branches at the moment. So essentially just what we are working on. So far I have a preview about the README file that helps to capture the project overview. I'm wondering whether anyone have any questions about README before we move on to the next item. Okay, so far I haven't seen any question yet, but please feel free to let me know if you have one. So now I move on to the second feature, which is the GitHub wiki pages that you can easily find at it's one of the tab at the top of your repository. So wiki pages help you to organize the project documentation, such as meeting minutes, papers, reports, presentation, and so on, in a better way, rather than putting all of these details in the README file. Of course, that's one way to organize the things, but that may not be the optimal way. So GitHub wiki pages can help you to resolve that issue. So just like thinking about when we develop software, one way could be to put everything in a single file. But then when things become larger and more complicated, then also become much more challenging to maintain that huge file. So rather than that, we can choose to split that large file into multiple smaller files to make it easier to manage and maintain. And the wiki pages help us to do just that, but mainly for the project documentation. So later I will show you an example how we can split the content into different sections using wiki pages. But before that, let me introduce how we can first create a wiki page. And in case it's your first page, then this button will still be here. You just need to click it, and then a new wiki page will at least it will take you to another window for you to create a new wiki page. And again, as you can see here, wiki pages has similar structure and content. I mean, the syntax as the README file. So whatever I presented for creating the README file can be also applied here. And of course, you can preview the page to see the changes in real time. And don't forget to add a brief message about what this page is about or what changes you're making here before saving the page. Just, for the sake of, keeping track of the changes later on. And from the second time onwards, you just need to click the new page button on top right corner here to add more wiki pages. And here also an example of the wiki pages that we created for Web Package 2. So specifically here we have like this, the structure of the wiki pages. So first we have a home page to show the key information of the project, for example, participant, industry partners, or the day and time of the fortnightly Web Package meeting that we have, so that when people click the wiki tab at the top, they can clearly see this information. And here, for example, here I'm using the heading 1, so that's why it can be displayed like this. So if you use heading 2, it will create another level of bullet list right from the panel here. So it's easier for us to view it compared to a README file. And below the home section, we also have other sections to keep the meeting minutes, quarterly reviews, information, and presentation organized by the date. And finally, we have a section for the reports. Of course, in your case, if you have other types of artifacts like designs or some special type of presentation slides, then you can feel free to create the page as you wish. So for example, here the report refers to the literature review that we're working on in the web package. So this is just, one way to create a page, but I just want to show you an idea that, how you can leverage the wiki pages to organize your documentation. And it's worth mentioning that these wiki section or wiki pages only allow text files. So it means that we cannot upload other types of files such as Word documents or Excel spreadsheets or PowerPoint slides directly to the wiki pages. So how we can do that? So first we have to upload those non-text files to GitHub, and then copy the link to the file or the artifact, and then we can embed it in a wiki page. For example, here, in order to attach the slides of the first quarterly review that has been uploaded in the folder named Quarterly Reviews, I will need to first copy the link, for example, to this slide. And then I embed it using the Markdown syntax that I showed you earlier. So here, I would like to share with you that there are two options to actually copy the link, the file link. So the first option is called copy path, meaning that we will only use the latest version of the file. So for example, if you want to update the file afterwards, then the content will always be the latest version of that file. So it also means that in case you choose to remove the file later on, then the link will also become unavailable because the file is no longer there. So in order to resolve this issue, we can go with the other option, the copy permalink here. So in this case, the embedded file will be the exact version that you uploaded at that time, and the content will never change later on. So the downside of this would be if you want to update the file to a newer version, then you have to go back and update the link again. So it's like a trade-off between these two options depending on your need. So I guess that's also all I would like to share about the wiki pages that help us to organize the project documentation. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to the next one?
So I think based on what you said, we can actually upload PDF files as well, right?
Yes, we can certainly upload any kind of file, which I'm gonna describe in the next few slides. But the key point here is that if it's a non-text files, then we cannot upload directly to the wiki pages. Yeah, we have to embed the link. I think I heard something from Praveen.
There was just hold on, just hold on. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So far I haven't seen any other questions yet, so I guess we can move on. And yes, the third feature I would like to mention here is how we can actually manage the file on GitHub, which I'm gonna explain, what you just asked. So there are two ways. Of course, first, when we talk about file management, first we need to add the file to the repository. So there are two ways that we can add files. First is through creating new files directly on the browser. And again, this will only be possible if you want to create a text. For other types of file, probably you need to go with the second option, which is local file upload. So the first option, creating new file, is actually similar to just creating the README file or the wiki page, as I mentioned earlier. Just one thing to note is that in case you want to create a file inside a folder, then you need to, when you create the name of the file, you need to first specify the folder name, then followed by a slash, and then the file name dot the file extension. And in case like the folder is an existing one, then it will put the new file inside that folder. For example, if I already have a folder called quarterly reviews, then if I say quality reviews dash slash and then a new file, then that new file will be added to this folder. However, let's say I don't have a folder before, and then I enter that folder name and then the name of the file, and then when I add that file, it will help me to create the folder as well. And in case like you want to upload a file from your local system, then you can go with the second option, which is the file upload. So for this one, yeah, it's just like you upload any file to the internet, but the key difference is that if you want to upload a file inside a folder, then you can just drag the whole folder with the file and drop it into here. Then GitHub will automatically recognize that for you. So you don't have to actually zip it and do anything else. So it's quite convenient. The only thing I would like to note is that until now, we can only upload a file using the browser that is up to 25 megabytes. And this, of course, is a limitation, but I will explain in the next file, in the next slide, how we can overcome this challenge and why this is not really a big hurdle for most of the cases. So as I mentioned, in case you need to upload a larger file than 25 megabytes, then you can consider the following options. The first and also quite simple one is to first upload the file to another online cloud storage service like Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever it is that is of your choice. And then you get the share link from that storage service, and then embed the link to that file as usual. Just need to make sure that you set the appropriate permission so that relevant people in the repository can view it. However, sometimes we don't want to rely on external services. We can still do it natively using either the git command or the Git large file system that can support up to 2 gigabytes per file, which is, I think, would cover most of cases except for some large data set. So for those cases, the best way would still be to upload to like Google Drive and then share the link. And it's worth noting that these two options here would require you to first download the repository to your local machine, and then you can add the large file to the downloaded folder, and then finally upload the updated repository containing the file back to GitHub. And all of those steps will be done using the respective Git commands described in this link. But from my experience, I believe that most of the files, at least for the web package tool so far we have been working on, are still within 25 megabytes, even the slides or like the task planner kind of thing is still within this size. So I think it wouldn't pose too much of a problem. And in this presentation today, I also didn't want to go too much into depth of these two options, but of course, in case you're interested, please refer to the link here, or we can have follow-up discussion regarding these points. And of course, as I mentioned, GitHub is a file tracking system. So of course, it will allow us to view all of the previous versions of any file that we have added or uploaded. And if it's a text file, we can even see the actual line-wise changes in each version. And if you want to update a file, then again, it depends on the file type. For example, if it's a text file, you can edit the file directly on GitHub. If not, then you will have to delete the file first and then upload an updated version of that file again. Just remember to make the commit following all the recommendations I shared early on before you save the changes. So that later on you can come back and see, okay, why you need to update the file. And of course, in order to delete, then GitHub, or you just need to click this icon on the browser and then you can delete the file. So that's pretty much about the file management on GitHub. Anyone has any questions before we move on? Okay, so I guess we don't have questions. So now I will come to the last part of the presentation today, where we'll be talking about the key features, namely issue, milestone, and project, to help us to create, assign, and track the task on GitHub, which I believe to be essential for project management. And in the picture on the right-hand side here.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Sorry,
yes, sure.
Treat you, since you are going to the last part, is there any way like for there is a limit on the file sizes, like with LFS you have 2 GB limit. Is there any way like you do this all stuff with automatically? We do it like is for the command line thing. It will make it more easier. Because if you have, for example, a project directory, you easily go there and track which files are not updated in the GitHub, and you can run that thing from your end. So is something you covering from CLI aspects in the because if you think about our project work package 1 or work package 2, there are a lot of folders in it. There are subfolders and subfiles. So manually doing that on web is quite tricky. So why not do that from like GitLab or the Git command line interface? That will make it more a little bit easy. So have you done this kind of or any plan to include that? Is that included this in your presentation side? That will help probably everyone rather than going every time, because we have every week meetings and we will try to keep updating only those changes which are not reflected rather than doing all from the stuff. So do you have any experience in that area, or you can give some points from your side on this?
Thing is, so if I understand correctly, what you said is that in case we have a complex file structure, like many sub folders, and then in the subfolders we have different files. So if we do it manually through the browser, it may be time consuming. So
Yes.
if you're asking whether there's an automated way that we can do it faster.
Yeah, my question is that there is automated way, but there are some problems with those automated ways. So do you have any comment, for example, just to for example, we have tomorrow meeting. After meeting, we add some files to my main folder, and I want to reflect that whole folder to a GitHub. 95% is already on GitHub, but the remaining is not. For example, we can in the CLI we can print like track which one is not missing and then only upload those files which are not on the GitHub. Is there any way that you encountered easy way, or it's not problematic?
So I just want to clarify a bit before answering it. Is like, so you mentioned that you want to check whether the files you want to add are already there on GitHub before adding them.
Right, because what we want to do is, for example, we want to go in a way that I have one folder, project folder, and then I have GitHub, which represent the same project. And then I update my project, which is on my desktop, and I add few files to it. But those added files are not on the GitHub site. So I want to do that through CLI easy rather than going to the browser and just upload those updated file rather than everything. So have you have that in something in your mind?
In that case, I would say like, yeah, it will be hard to actually check whether files already there. I mean, you can use the search function on the browser if you know the name of the file. But then again, if you have many files, then it will take quite a bit of time to do so. So I would say in that case, it may be best to just first download the repository, or you can say clone the repository, and then get the latest update before you want to add the file. And then you can go to the same folder and then see whether like the file is there, because if it's inside your desktop or laptop, it will be easier to view that kind of thing. And then you can just make the changes there and push it back to the repository. I guess that's, the common way that we do it. But if you want to really want to check whether the file you want to add is already there or not automatically on browser, that I think I'm not aware of any technique.
Right.
So yes.
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can continue with the last feature about issue milestone projects here that I was talking about. So in this figure here, I would like to share the relationship between the three features. So basically, the issues usually represent the task, like the smaller task. Like, for example, we need to write this section, or we need to run this experiment. While the milestone are used to group the relevant issues together. For example, if milestone can be like a literature review or a horizon scan. And of course, in horizon scan, we need to write different sections. So that's how we can use milestone to manage issues or manage the task. And on the outermost layer, we have the project, and usually we just get one per project or per repository, where we can manage all of the milestone and issues inside the current repository. So now let's just start from inside out with starting with the smallest unit first, the issues. So issues are another tab located next to the code tab in the taskbar. And then now I walk you through each of the features in issue here. By issue, I mean like these item elements. So first, of course, we have the title and description, which, we have seen it many times for the commit, the README file, as well as the wiki pages. And so it means that it will share the same kind of practice. For example, don't make the title too long. And more details can go into this part. Of course, you can preview it as well. And all of this content will be based on Markdown again. But the special thing about issues start from the right panel here. So first, we can specify the assignees or who would be responsible for this issue. And then you can tag the issue with different labels, can assign the issue to different project and milestone. And all of these I will be covering in the next few slides. So but first, just let's quickly talk about a special, not like a feature, but like I would call it a tip for creating the description of issue. Besides all of the other types of Markdown syntaxes here, usually we also rely on the task list, which is this one, this like symbols here to create a task list, and then we'll create a tick boxes for you. So essentially, it helps you to intuitively think about the progress of the issue. For example, if this issue requires you to perform these 3 subtasks, then if you complete 2 of them, it means that you have completed nearly 67% of this issue, because the issue itself doesn't have a mechanism for you to clearly see the progress. So this is just one tip that we usually use to measure the progress of an issue and what's also remaining to be done before the whole issue is finished. So moving on is the, assign the people to do the issue. That part is quite straightforward. You just select the people from the list, and those will be the members of the repository. But the more interesting part here I would like to share with you is how to actually get the notification for the assigned issue, because we've seen many cases where like you assign a task to a person, but that person somehow didn't get the notification, so they didn't get on GitHub to perform the task. So we want to do it automatically without having to send email by ourselves. So there are 2 places that you need to check to make sure the notifications are working properly. First is in the repository itself, especially in the watch section with the icon here. So here you can select to receive all the notifications from the repositories, or you can customize what kind of notification you would like to receive in case like this, you don't want to receive too many of the notifications that may be considered irrelevant to you. And from my experience, most people would have done this, but somehow they still haven't received the updates. So in that case, then you need to go to your personal account, then navigate to the notification settings. Then make sure that you turn on the notifications here, the watching one, to like tick these 2 boxes. Or if you want to just receive notification via email, then you can just tick the email box. Otherwise, even if you take all activity here, but these 2 boxes are not ticked, then you still won't receive the notifications. And here I just want to mention another kind of feature, because some people asked me before, for example, if they get assigned with an issue, then they receive notification. But if they create an issue and they tag themselves, they won't receive it. And the reason lies here. If you don't add the tick the box called My Own Updates in the customized email updates section, you won't receive your own updates, because GitHub assumes that you know what you're doing already. You don't need to get the notification for that. But in case you're interested, then this is something you need to configure. Okay, so moving on to the labels of the issues. So GitHub already provides us with a few default ones that are shown here. However, you can add more labels depending on your needs and preferences. So here, I would recommend a few types of labels that you can consider for your work package, such as levels of importance, urgency, complexities. All the labels can also take the names of the deliverables. Regarding what labels names you can use, it may be useful to first discuss it with all the members in your team, in your work package meetings, so that everyone is on the same page before we actually use them, so that at least we kind of know the convention that we follow in a project, because every project is different. But of course, these things can be used in any project. Just need to agree on like what you mean by low importance. For example, like, does it mean that it has to be done within a week or 3 days or 5 days or something like that? And of course, when we create an issue, of course, we want to finish it, right? So when you finish an issue, you complete an issue, you can close it. And this is an interface for closing an issue. So GitHub, of course, you can just simply click the button close without comment. But if you want to add some bit of information about the outcome of the issues, for example, then you can do it as well when closing an issue. For example, I added a list of data sets that we created, which fulfills this issue. So that later on, when we go back to this issue, we can see, okay, we already have this file. And of course, GitHub also allows us to reopen an issue, which normally we don't want to do it, but happens sometimes. For example, when you want to add a new subtask that was missing in the beginning, or you figure out that more work is required before an issue can be actually finished. But in this slide, I will show you a faster way, a more convenient way that you can close an issue without having to like go to the issue and click the button here. For example, if you have to first upload a file, then if you follow the previous slide, then you have to do 2 steps. First, you need to upload that file, create a commit for that file, and then you will attach that file to the box when you close an issue. But here you can combine them into one single step by just need to use these keywords followed by the issue number in the commit message box. For example, here, normally I would just say add some file. But here, if you notice, I also say close issue number 2, which is the one I showed in the previous slide. So GitHub will automatically identify that, okay, this commit will be like the outcome of the issue, and then it will help you to close it. And besides this term close, you can, GitHub provides other options as well in this list here. So you can use either of them. And everything else follows the same standard. And after you commit the changes, it will automatically close the issue and also attach it with the commit ID that you just make. So everything is done in a single step. So that's all I want to say about issues. If any questions before we move on to the milestone? I think issue, we will be using it quite frequently because there are many tasks that we need to do, and then you can assign this issue to different people. And of course, you can assign to yourself as well. And so the next one is about milestone, which are helpful to group relevant issues. So you can consider milestone kind of similar to the key deliverables in a work package. So similar to deliverable, of course, you have due date. As I mentioned, for issue, we don't have this option. So milestone can be one way that you can specify the due date. Of course, you can add to the description of the issue, but it won't be as easy to see as in the case of milestone. And in the description here, you can also include the contributors or some relevant materials if needed. So for example, in the work package 2, we create a milestone for the horizon scan with due date as the upcoming quality review. And then we attach the link to the file that everyone has been contributing to on Overleaf. And after we create this milestone, then when you create a new issue, you can assign the issue to that milestone. And of course, if you have multiple milestones, then you can select among them to assign to. And after you repeat this step for different issues, different milestones, then the end result will look something like this, where you have a milestone with a list of open and closed issues. And the green bar on top will show you the progress of the milestone. And the progress is measured by the number of closed issues divided by the number of total issues that you have created. For example, here we have 1 closed issue and 4 created issues in total. So the progress is 25% complete. So that's all about milestone. Do you have any questions? I think it's quite straightforward, but it's quite useful to group relevant ones. And then you can see which one is still open to work on, which one has been completed. I don't see any questions. So I guess we can move on to the last piece of the presentation today, which is about project. Actually, these are one of the latest features added by GitHub to enhance its project management capability. So project provides more fine-grained status for managing the progress. If you remember, for issue, you can only have open or close, which is binary. But sometimes in practice, we have something between as well. For example, an issue can be a blocker for other tasks to proceed, or this issue requires some feedback or approval before it can move forward. So project is designed specifically to capture that level of detail, which is missing with the issue. Just a note is that in order to use this feature, you will first need to ask the account owner. In this case, I believe it will be either Ali or Carl to help you to create a project for your work package and then add all of the members of that work package to it. So let's say like after the project is created, assign, and then they will assign to work package 2, and then all the members of that work package will be able to see it. And you may want to add some extra things before you get started. So by default, project just have a status which will take the values of to do, in progress, or done. But here we find it helpful to have 3 more fields, which is start date, deadline, and the quarter, to just align it directly with the deliverables we have and the quality review we have. So similarly to milestone, after we create a project, we can now assign it to any issue that we created after that. And actually, we can also assign the issue with the status. I mean, these status can be added as well, but so far we just stick with the default one, to do, in progress, and done. And most of the time, when we create a new issue, it will either fall into to do or in progress. And there are actually ways so that you can automatically assign it. For example, when you create an issue, you can automatically assign it to do or in progress. But that's kind of advanced features. But if you're interested, we can discuss it as well. So for projects, the key features they offer is that they provide 3 different ways that we can view the task. The first is the tool view, which is convenient in case we want to add or edit a task and their attributes, for example, status, start, deadline, end date, and the quarter. So this is like the basic one. But sometimes if you have too many tasks, it may be a bit hard to get a quick understanding of what's going on in the project. But this, of course, is the most basic one that you can start with. But this one, I would say that most people will be relying on, because when you use the board view, you can quickly see the status of every single issue. And here you can also easily drag and drop one issue from one status to another quickly, yeah. And last but not least, we have the timeline view, which I consider to be quite similar to just a Gantt chart. And of course, since it's similar to Gantt chart, it will order everything based on time. And then if you go to, like, if you set the view to timeline view, then you can add different things to this view as well. For example, you add the markers for today, and then you can add markers for the milestone or the due date for your quarterly review. So you easily see what task is coming up next, and can easily plan what to do next. So yes, so that also brings me to the end of the presentation, and here's just a slide to recap the 4 key GitHub features that I introduced today for project management, and I hope that you will find them useful for managing your own work package in the Socrates project. Thank you very much for your attention. Now, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Great presentation. Thanks a lot for the information. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Treat. It was quite informative, new things. Thank you.
Hi, Treat. Thank you for that excellent presentation. Just I'm really much interested about the last part, like project management stuff, because we already have here Trello that gives excellent visibility, who is doing what, and chasing up the deliverables. So already you mentioned that for having that project, I still need, Carl and Ali to involve to create for me, right?
Yes, but it's just a one-time setup, yeah. So it will be quick,
because within this capacity, I can create projects under my personal account, but that's still, not secure or not under the WP 6 that's already been assigned to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have already on account access, like the repository access to me from Ali, but I need these projects to be created for me as well. That's the thing, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. So
that will be the next step. Yeah. And after that, you can edit the project yourself after you have been added to the project.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm still looking forward to Ali to get that things done. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Treat. Actually, I would like to know about one thing. Like sometimes we need to publish some information publicly. Sometimes we need to publish information privately. So can we make this kind of classifications in one project? Like some information we can share publicly and some information we would like to make secure within our group. Is it possible?
So to answer your question, I think currently all of the work packages, like the repository of all the work packages, are created to be private. Yes. So it means that all of the information, the artifacts, code, or documentation will also remain private as well, unless you add the member to it, then they won't be able to see it.
Well, that's good. Basically, I am asking, I have the own GitHub repository. So whenever we would like to read something, like as in paper, if it's not published, then we can make it as a private resource. But if it's published, then we can set up as a public resource or something like that. So I am just asking, is it possible to make that kind of easy conversation, or we need to make different project?
I think currently, like, for example, the README file or the wiki pages, there's no option that you can only make those things public, given that the whole repository is private. But in case of a file, and if the file is not stored directly on GitHub, then you can just, set the appropriate permission so that even people outside of the project can see it. But I guess Ali can give some suggestion on that as well.
Okay, so can you please unshare that? Thanks for making presentation. We need to wrap up the session. Look, I mean, this question is very good one, but all information related to Socrates is a private. And even you want to make something public, you need to go through the approval process, which is not me, CRC, I mean, particularly Soraya, in that respect. So I would refer that one to Soraya if you want to make some information public.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, everyone. Thank you, and thanks to it again. And we will make this recording available soon. All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Now. Bye.
Thank you, Ali. The next stage, like we need to create up under the projects under that stuff.
Yeah. We will provide you that support soon.
That would be great. Super. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.